The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And before I begin, may I enter into the record and have unanimous consent that I enter opposition to TSA's announced change regarding the prohibited items list, letters from the committee, the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA, and the Association of Professional Flight Attendants.
So ordered.
Mr. Chairman and our witnesses, thank you for being here today. I have to say that since the administrator announced that knives will now be taken off the prohibited items list, I've been scratching my head, wondering why we would want to make our passengers and crew more vulnerable today than they were since the policy was implemented, and why we would want to recklessly and dangerously put them at risk. And from what I've gathered in this last month since it was announced, it seems that the administrator is saying that TSA and its TSOs, their officers who are at the weapons screening and screening stations at the airports, are having a tough time distinguishing and spending so much time on knives that it prohibits them from looking at liquids and new emerging threats. And to me, that's really the administrator saying that TSA can walk but not chew gum, or it can chew gum but not walk, but it cannot chew gum and walk at the same time. And I think we must have a TSA that can look at old threats and also continue to protect us against new threats. Earlier, Mr. Freeman, who's not here any longer, stated that if we get this right with regard to TSA, our economy improves. But my job and our job as a committee, I believe, is to make sure that we don't get it wrong. Because if we get it wrong, we saw what happens to our economy and passengers and crew and people on the ground. And if we get it wrong, things go very, very bad, very, very fast. Before this policy, TSA only had to screen objects that were prohibited, sharp objects that are prohibited. Now this policy asks TSOs to measure the knives. And knowing anyone who travels, I don't imagine they're going to be measuring their knives the night before. So, Mr. Bohr, what I imagine is a situation something like this. I'm a football fan, and we've all seen NFL referees measuring first downs. Now, I can imagine that at the airport screening lines, we're going to have TSA agents taking out the tape and measuring whether these knives are 2.36 inches or longer. And if that's the case, do you think that is going to allow the TSA agents to focus more on liquids, or is this going to hold up our lines and actually make them less capable, prepared, and ready to focus on liquids?
You've hit on a very central concern that our union has, Mr. Congressman. The TSA has assured us, we haven't seen it in writing, but they've assured us that nobody's going to measure any knives at the checkpoint. They acknowledge it's not a good idea to have millions of passengers going through the checkpoint every day and have a lot of open knives, you know, people waving them around. Oh, look at this, how long is this one? You know, so supposedly there's no knives are going to be measured, and it's going to be left up to the TSO's judgment. But I would be willing to bet that the scenario you described about none of the passengers are going to measure their knives. Yes, they are. They're going to come to the airport and they're going to know exactly how long their knife is. And if it's left to the TSO's judgment call and they say, well, no, it looks like it's too long, and TSA has assured us they aren't going to second-guess the judgment call, well, that passenger is going to second-guess the judgment call. And you say, oh, no, it's not too long. Let me see that.
Then we go to the instant replay,
and open
right?
it back up, and now we got a guy with a knife again. So.
I have another question, Mr. Bohr. TSA will allow non-locking knives, but locking knives are allowed, non-locking knives are not allowed. Do you see the same problem with your agents now having to decide whether a knife is locking or not locking?
They've only got just seconds, really, with each passenger and their belongings. Sure. And to distinguish one from the other that quickly, looking at the screen or even looking in the bag, it's going to slow things down.
And here in this picture, just for the record, one of them is locking, one is not locking. I can't tell the difference. And my concern is, as Mr. Bohr mentioned, our TSOs are not trained right now for this policy to be implemented on April 25th. I believe we can have a risk-based security program, which all of the witnesses agree upon, including Mr. Bohr, and still protect against sharp objects which, if used dangerously on an airplane, can hurt the staff, can hurt our flight attendants, can hurt the passengers. So I would support, Mr. Chairman, considering delaying this, or even propose that if we want to use our Trusted Traveler program, this could be a compromise here where we look at the Trusted Traveler program, allow those individuals to carry these new knives that will be allowed, see if it works with that small pool before we just blanketly allow anyone, regardless of their criminal record or regardless of their mental health status or risk, to bring knives on the airplane. I think our TSA must be able to protect against old threats and new threats. And thank you.
I think